this is Paul Elliott from ASET Services. I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about field testing basketball floors for dead spots, basically to find or state whether or not dead spots are present on the floor. I think that most people know or think they know what a dead spot is. What involves a spot being dead, though, and perceived is a little bit different for everyone. Certainly one component of a dead spot is its rebound height, and that's what we do testing with, is the rebound height of a dead spot. But as you encounter different spots on a floor, you'll encounter places that sound different, and you'll encounter places that feel different, where the reverberation feels different as it comes through your feet when the ball hits the floor. If we're not careful, we take those three different feels, height, sound, and feel, and all of those senses, and our brain tells us the rebound height is lower. What we find is that an awful lot of points that people say are dead really have acceptable rebound heights. They'll just sound different or feel different. So let me address the next question before we talk about dead spot testing and how we do it and what we do. Why can't we do tests for feel, and why can't we do tests for sound? The simple truth is A, we don't have a standard that tells us a standardized method to measure how the reverberation of a floor feels. We don't have a standardized method to tell us what the sound of a floor should be or how much deviation in sound is acceptable, when that deviation becomes too much of a difference, when the vibration difference becomes too much of a difference. So we don't have a way to measure those, and therefore when it comes to dead spot testing, anyone you hire to come evaluate your floor for dead spots can only do a test based on the actual rebound height. So we're using our rebound system that we've developed in-house. The rebound system uses two impacts. We let it drop, it hits the floor once, it hits the floor a second time. The time in the sound signature, that's why it's acoustic, we listen to the sound when those two impacts occur. That tells us then we use the equation in the standards to calculate the height. But yes, if you have a floor that you think has dead spots, we can come test that floor and we can tell you whether they are dead or not. We have a scale. We basically have points that we'll say they're not dead because they fall within the standards. We have the next range where we classify points as marginally dead. We classify points as marginally dead because the difference, the amount of out of spec they are and the amount of difference in rebound height, we think is low enough that before you ask someone to come in and do something to your floor, you need to weigh whether what they do to your floor is worth it. Because to fix a dead spot, someone may come in and say, hey, I can drill a hole and I can put expanded foam under it. And that's true. If you go in and you drill a small hole, you can put in expanded urethane foam, the same you put around windows and doors, and you'll eliminate the dead spot. What you'll also eliminate, if it's a newer floor, and that could be really since the 1990s, a newer floor, you'll eliminate any bioresponse, any force reduction, you'll eliminate deflections, you'll make a very hard point. And probably what you will do is you won't have a dead spot anymore. You'll have conversely what you could call a live spot. You'll have a place where the ball bounces higher than anywhere else on the floor. You can also take a floor, some floating floors you can do this too, but you may also take a floor and say, hey, we want to put in spot anchors. So we'll drill a small hole and we'll anchor that floor. We'll cinch it down. Maybe it's a low spot in the slab they missed, but we'll cinch that down so the pad is in contact with the floor. Realize that when you do that too, you've also applied downward force. Somewhere there are pads we've put in more compression. We've made them a little harder than where we anchored the floor. There is a give and take. Now, once you get into a certain level, we call those severe or significant dead spots. And those, as an owner, you probably should have looked at. So let's talk about when you might want to do dead spot testing, or when when people utilize ball rebound testing in general and specifically dead spot testing. So a lot of times if a floor is new, owners feel like they have dead spots. We offer you the service to come and test that facility for dead spots and to tell you whether you do or don't based on the points you provide to us. We make that clear. When it comes to dead spot testing, no one can come and test your whole floor and tell you, yes, you have dead spots, or no, you don't have dead spots, and here's where they are. It's simply not practical. Ball rebound changes pretty quickly across the floor. It can change in a couple feet, and that's generous. It can change in a foot. But let's say 2 feet. Let's say if I move 2 foot in either direction, my ball bounce can change. That means that really I would need to do a test on every 4 square feet within a court. Now this dimension isn't right, but the math is good for a video. Right? A basketball court is nominally 50 by 100 feet. So you're talking about within the playing court, I'm not talking side courts, you may have a bigger facility, but just to test a court within the game lines, roughly 5,000 feet, 4 square feet per point, that's 1,250 points we'd have to do a test on. Not only would we have to do those tests that many times, we'd have to accurately locate them so that you knew exactly where all 1,250 of them were. It's impractical. I don't have any idea how long it would take. It would take at least probably 3 days and would probably cost $8,000 or $10,000 if you wanted to do that. And it may take 2 or 3 people, because at that 1,200 test points, 5 drops per point, which is what we do, you're at almost 10,000 drops. It's just a lot of work. So that's not how dead spot testing works. At least it's not how we do dead spot testing. What do we do if you hire us? What do we do when we get on site? Number one, we test in 3 categories. We do a first category, which is just general performance. So we'll come on site and we'll pick about 5 points that are solely based on game lines and geographical locations on the court. So think about directly under the basket. Think about the center of your free throw line. Think about the top arc of the 3-point line. Think about where the 3-point arc turns into a straight line. Maybe it's where a volleyball game line intersects a 3-point arc. Those are the things we're looking for those 5 points. And we want to spread them out as evenly as we can across the floor, because we want to get some idea of, is there a difference on this end of the floor or that end of the floor, generally. The next thing we're going to do is we would ideally like to test about 3 to 5 points that you identify as ideal rebound. As an owner, if you think there are dead spots, you have to think there are some spots that are ideal or that aren't dead. So we ask owners to identify those 5 points. Owners rarely identify those 5 points. When that happens, we do go through and we try to pick points that we think have lower vibrations, a little better, crisper sound. A dead spot has more of a thud than a thwack. That's not technical, but that's kind of true. Or we think have a little bit better rebound. We'll pick those points, but if you haven't picked them, you kind of shortchange the test and what you can learn. Then the next group of points that we're going to test are actual dead spots. We ask facilities to identify the points, have them taped, have them marked ahead of time, so that when we get on site, we can test the points that you think are dead. How many points do we normally do when we test for Jim for dead spots? Our standard test is around 20 points. If you have more points than that you really want tested, we can do more points than that. But obviously more points may involve more dollars. It may not, depending on how far we've had to travel. That's another point. Where do we travel? We'll do dead spot testing anywhere in the country, anywhere in North America. We've done dead spot testing internationally before on some U.S. military bases. So, yes, we can do dead spot testing. We can answer your questions. We can tell you whether you have them, whether you don't have them. If you do have them, you then have the data to go back to the manufacturer, back to your contractor, and say, hey, this floor doesn't perform right. This floor has dead spots, and we want you to fix them. So If we just do general ball rebound testing, let's say you had a new floor, we would do very much the same process, except we wouldn't be looking for dead spots. We wouldn't be looking for good spots. We'd still test around 20 points, but they would almost all be located basically in easily identifiable game line locations. So if you find yourself thinking you have dead spots, if you find yourself wanting to know, hey, how dead are they? Should we do something about them? Where do they fall into things? Contact us. We'd love to put together a proposal for you, tailor a solution to get your answers, your questions answered. I hope you learned something today. I hope you learned that dead spot testing was possible. I'm guessing you probably didn't know that. So have a good day. Learn something more tomorrow. Thank you very much.